Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Isakaya Savage, and I am honored to be your host for the evening. Welcome to Unplugged, Young Black Artists Speaking Out. The Coalition for African Americans in the Performing Arts, also known as CAAPA, have an exciting and informative panel discussion planned for you. I'm thrilled about this event and the panelists that are chosen to participate, as CAAPA is one of the few organizations providing a platform specifically for young artists of this generation to allow them to let their voices be heard amidst the great challenges in our world: COVID-19, civil unrest due to police brutality, inequity in the classical world of arts, and probably much more. We will come to understand not only how the panelists feel about these current events, but also how they are finding ways to cope and develop inspiration in the face of it all. I'm very excited to hear from these young artists. But first, I would like to introduce CAAPA's co-founder and chairperson, Ms. Pamela Simonson.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for being here with us this evening. I am so excited, as my brother Victor and I started CAAPA many years ago to give back to the community. And our community is vibrant, it's talented, it's fierce. And so we are so grateful to have a panel of talented, fierce, and vibrant artists that I look forward to hearing from this evening. And I know not only are we going to learn from them, but we want to know as CAAPA how we can help you. So please stay in touch with us. Thank you for being here again. And I am so ready to hear what this next hour brings. Next up, you will hear my mother and the executive director for CAAPA, Terry Allen.
Good evening and welcome to Unplugged. I'm so grateful that you're here tonight with the Coalition for African Americans in the Performing Arts. We have a panel of wonderful, wonderful young people. But before we get started, I'd just like to let you know that CAAPA is an arts organization, nonprofit, that helps bring color to the classics. And we do that by supporting Black classical musicians and others in the performing arts. We are so grateful for these young people tonight because we want to hear their voices. I want you to continue to support CAAPA as you have been doing in the past. We're so grateful for your kind consideration. And if you feel so inclined, please help support the Music Scholarship Program. You'll see something on your screen later on after the panel. And if you would like to make a contribution to the coalition to help Black classical musicians, it would be greatly, greatly appreciated. We want to thank all of our volunteers and all of the participants tonight for just being here and being a part of this wonderful panel discussion. And now, without further ado, we have a wonderful, wonderful moderator. I met her just a few years ago. She began with CAAPA as an intern. She just graduated and moved on up. She is now an arts administrator doing a very fine job with a nonprofit in Washington, D.C. Please, I'd like to welcome, and please join me in welcoming, Christina Lyles.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much, Ms. Terry, for that gracious introduction. As Ms. Terry mentioned, I worked with CAAPA as an intern very on in the start of my career in the field of arts administration. And since that initial meeting, I will say that I have grown to develop a deep love and passion for CAAPA, for all of the artistic work that they do for African American classical musicians, and also inspiring our youth to pursue their dreams. So thank you again for this opportunity. Again, I want to welcome all of our viewers who are tuned into this evening's panel. I want to warmly welcome you to our Unplugged Young Artists virtual panel. I'm really excited about tonight's conversation, which will be focused on social justice in the arts. At this time, it's no surprise that such a conversation needs to be had in order to learn from each other, heal, and find ways to collaboratively work together. Tonight, our panel consists of young, accomplished artists who represent different artistic backgrounds and genres. And now I would like to introduce our wonderful panelists. I will call their names and they will then briefly share a little bit about themselves. And the first panelist that I would love to introduce to you all is Joshua Banbury.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joshua Banbury. I had been living in New York for the past 2 years, but I just moved back home to Austin. So I've been working on an opera, and I primarily work as a vocalist, but I've been transitioning more into like composition and writing librettos and whatnot. So that is me.
Thank you so much for sharing. We're so glad to have you, Joshua. And now I would like to introduce Project MC. Please tell us about yourself.
Hello, everyone. I go by the name Project MC, 19 years old. I am the former Youth Poet Laureate for Prince George's County, Maryland, as well as an rap artist, a musician, producer, and the music director for WBSU Bulldog Nation Radio. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. We're so happy to have you. And now I would like to introduce Jacqueline Fan.
Hi everyone, my name is Jacqueline. I'm from Oklahoma and I'm a junior in high school this year. And I'm the CEO of a 501c3 nonprofit organization called Live Life Music, which is working to better the lives of underprivileged artists in Oklahoma and in other communities so that we can provide them the access to arts resources that they deserve.
Thank you so much for being here with us, Jacqueline. And finally, I would like to introduce Joshua Jenkins. Please share about yourself.
Hello, my name is Joshua Jenkins, and I'm very proud to be here this evening to help support CAAPA, which is an organization which deserves the unconditional support of everybody because of the work they do in supporting Black artists, whether that's me or whether that's been anybody else in this field. So I'm a native of this area. I'm born and raised in Tacoma Park, Maryland. I'm a graduate. I'm a proud alum of the Duke Ellington School of the Arts and of Temple University. I am, in addition to working as the music director of the CAAPA Ensemble, I also work closely with the Washington Jazz Arts Institute, run by Davy and Esther Yarbrough, which supports free jazz education for students in this area.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that, Joshua. And so again, I just want to remind our viewers that tonight's conversation is going to be centered around social justice and the arts. And before we move into our questions, I kind of just want to set the stage with this statement. Many artists create work that intersects with political activism and social justice causes. Throughout history, art has been used as an accessible tool for communication, raising awareness about social issues, and affecting positive change. So that being said, I would love if each panelist would go around, and I'll call your names, would please share the social issues that are most relevant to you, and also share how you use your artistic voice to raise awareness about those social issues. And I would first like to begin with Project MC.
Hi. So some of the social justice issues that are most important to me, one of them being acknowledging the suffering and the oppression of Black women specifically. And that's most important to me because I have a lot of important women in my life. Some of my best friends are women, my mother, my sister, they mean a lot to me. And it's important to recognize that in a system of where oppression is created, there's pretty much levels to it in a sense. And that's, you have Black men, you have women, and then you combine those two, Black women, that's like the bottom of the totem pole right there. So it's important to me to recognize the things that men go through as well, but to also shed light on Black women and understand that that is important to lend my voice as a Black man to a Black woman to help them, because they are the backbone of our entire people. And the other thing is just paying attention to lower income neighborhoods and providing them with resources and shining light on them. And one of the ways I do that is I work with an organization called Peer Forward, and Peer Forward is pretty much big on helping students reach their full potential, getting them into college and things like that, but also caring for them as a person first, checking on them mentally and providing them with the resources they need to do that. So that to me is one of the biggest ways of just helping people who need their voices to be heard.
Wow, that is so powerful. I think you are absolutely on par with a lot of the issues that need to be addressed in our community today. And so I thank you for really focusing and actually being a part of the healthy work to address some of those issues. So thank you again. Now, I would love to hear from Joshua Banbury. If you could please also share the social issues that are relevant to you and how you use your artistic voice to raise awareness.
Yeah, that's a really great question. Thank you. I think to me, I'm really concerned with inequity in arts education and Black people being able to have access to be interested in the arts to begin with, which is where all of this begins for everybody with the children. So I'm interested in creating work that influences Black children to gravitate towards the classical arts, whether it be like writing operas for children, featuring Black characters or ballets or things like that that kind of initiate the general interest in the arts. Yeah, and I think I have I don't think every artist is required to do social activism in their art. I think that it's not it's because I'm a Black artist, I feel the pressure to create art around social justice and Black struggle, but I think it's also quite a statement and just as important to be making art for Black people that has nothing to do with our struggle. And yeah, and everything to do with what happened 500 years before we got to the United States, ancient African history, and sharing that with children and inspiring them in that way. So that's what I'm interested in doing at this point in my career. It's shifted from singing to writing and creating.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that so much. I really appreciate what you said. I totally agree that, you know, social justice activism and the arts is not everyone's lane. But I really do appreciate those who actually step up and have the ability to use their artistic voice to create that healthy change that are needed in our communities. So thank you for that. And how about you, Jacqueline? Would you please share?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, there are so many social issues going on with the Black Lives Matter movement, just advocating for underprivileged people everywhere. Right now, I would say the most important social issue to me is racial equality, because I may not be a member of the Black community, but I've seen how prejudice, discrimination, how it affects Black individuals disproportionately, and I always try my best to be the best ally that I can for underprivileged people and people who are discriminated against unfairly by the system. And, you know, it's not fair, and I think change really needs to occur now. And as a minority artist, I get to see firsthand the racial inequalities that are happening in the arts world. It's harder for certain musicians to gain access. There's not enough funding allocated to certain areas. It's harder for those minority communities to gain access to arts resources, training, performances, a lot of things that most people tend to take for granted. So again, I've been blessed with the opportunity to be the CEO of a group that is specifically working to address these inequities within the arts world. And we're trying to uplift these underprivileged communities and provide them the access that they need. And we've been very lucky to find a community through arts that collectively is working to better the lives of the disadvantaged and underfunded communities.
Thank you so much. Wow, that was a lot. I'm really happy about the work that you're doing within your own organization. And I think that it's amazing, as you shared your age, that you're very young, but you have the willingness and the ability to kind of create your own lane and do what you can to, again, be a part of the positive change that we need today. So thank you so much for sharing that. And finally, Joshua Jenkins, would you please also share your response to this question?
Absolutely. And I'm so inspired by everything that I'm hearing right now. And the biggest issue that is glaring to me on a level, on all levels, I would say locally in our area, nationally in our country, and just around the world, to me, is the silencing of Black voices. That to me is I have a huge problem with that because I see that everywhere. I see that the silencing of Black voices happens in the media, the silencing of Black voices happens in the arts, the silencing of Black voices happens in history. It happens everywhere. And I think what people don't understand, what a lot of people fail to understand is that the issues that we face, and I'm going to bring it specifically to, I think, a national level, because this country is going through such an incredibly difficult time and a divisive time. The reason why Black voices need to be heard so much is because I think that Black voices are more qualified than I think so many other voices to respond to the challenges that face our country, because they are the people who are dealing with those problems every day. And I think that if those voices are uplifted more, I think that we would have solutions to a lot of our issues, whether that's in health, whether that's in politics, whether that's in education. I mean, that's another place where the Black voice is silenced, is in schools. I mean, it happens on every level and in so many ways that I think that it's so important that it's why I'm so inspired by the work that I do with CAAPA and with Washington Jazz Arts Institute, because I think it's important to not only lead by example and show that Black people can have a voice and have a powerful voice and speak for themselves, but it's also these are organizations that help uplift the youth and will bring the next generation of people who are creative, who are dynamic, who will solve the problems that are facing our communities and our nation and our world. And I wanted to respond to specifically what Joshua said. I could not agree with you more. And one thing that I think that gets overlooked is that the Black community, we spend so much time responding defensively to the things that we're under attack from, that we cannot devote our energy to where it truly would be going, which is our own artistic endeavors, our own history, our own culture. I mean, those things are so beautiful intrinsically that they should be promoted on their own. But instead, we are devoting so much of our energy just to our own self-preservation and self-defense. So to me, it's just bringing Black voices out. And I try and do that every day.
Yeah, that's very powerful. I couldn't agree with you more. I think we definitely need more opportunities for people of color to have platforms to be able to share their perspectives and talk about what's going on within our own communities. And like you said, CAAPA is definitely a wonderful organization that does the best that they can to afford people of color an opportunity to perform. In this platform right now, we're sharing how we feel about certain things that are happening around us. So again, I also just want to thank CAAPA and give them a huge shout out for being a part of this positive work. So thank you. Which leads me to kind of my next question, which is kind of more focused on the coronavirus outbreak. And the question is, since the outbreak of the coronavirus, many people have spent a lot more time on social media. How have you used your social media platforms to continue your artistic endeavors? Project MC, would you like to share first how you've used your social platforms?
So with me, I pretty much every other day, every week, I'm posting different content, whether it be a poem, whether it be a rap piece that I made to a beat. And it touches on a lot of different things that are going on. I recently did a piece on the importance of voting and pretty much my viewpoints on it, how I'm not as eager to go do it, but I know that I have a responsibility to do it because we got to get 45 out of office. So yeah, I just take the time to engage with my viewers, my followers, talk about different social media things on social media, as well as just posting different content just to give people something to think about and to spark conversation.
Wow. Well, thank you for using your platform. I think it's so important. A lot of times I even will admit, I find myself scrolling aimlessly. So actually someone like you who is um, presenting such great content that's really relevant to what's going on and giving, like you said, people an opportunity to share how they feel or to just comment or even just to watch is so important right now. So thank you for that. Jacqueline, how about you? How are you using social media during this time to kind of further your social issues that you are most concerned about?
Right. So, as I've said, our nonprofit organization, it used to be a, mostly in-person sort of group, dealing with things that are in person because that was what was possible before the outbreak of COVID-19. But with the outbreak, we have shifted to a social media platform. So we use it as an outlet for communication, bringing up other artists that may be underrepresented. And similarly, we've been able to use social media to put together a cappella music videos. We bring awareness to these social issues in the arts world, giving a voice to the people who need it and who haven't been able to find it right now. So we're just really advocating online as much as we can because that's what's possible right now. And we're just working to expand our outreach. And we've found artists all over the world who want to volunteer and continue to advocate for underprivileged communities. So social media has been such an important tool for us, especially with the current outbreak.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, social media has benefited a lot of us in so many different ways, as it's something that really is almost accessible to a lot of people. Than a lot of in-person programming, as you were sharing, kind of limits the number of people you could reach. So I would say that social media has been amazing in the sense that you can reach however many people that you would like to reach in a given time. So thank you for that. And how about you, Joshua Banbury?
I think when all of this started happening back in March, my initial reaction was to continue putting out art as I was before every week. I was singing many times a week and kind of staying in the practice of doing that. But just in the last month or two, I've just deleted my Instagram and Facebook because, I mean, to be honest, like if I look at the people that follow me on Instagram, a lot of them are Black artists as well, Black people that don't need to be told, about the issues that are going on that are already largely informed. I just think that I could be using my time better, focusing on creating something that can be helpful to people in that way versus posting a story or a video. And I see that there's a lot of benefit in that as well. But I've recently just been trying to do another approach and really just disconnecting from all social media and seeing what it feels like to create art without being connected to other people and ideas and energies and whatnot.
Well, thank you for sharing. I completely agree with that. And as much as social media can be a powerful tool, too much of it can be a bit much and overwhelming, especially with so much that's going on. And every day you're seeing horrible news and just tragedies that are happening with within our communities around us every day. It's a lot to process at times. So I completely agree. The need to disconnect from it all is very important and very vital for our mental health and emotional health. So thank you for sharing and reminding us of that, Joshua. And Joshua Jenkins, how about you? Would you please share?
Of course. I kind of have a complicated relationship with social media because while I do think it can be an incredible tool to bring people together. It is a very powerful tool for whatever we use it for as a society. And so I find that oftentimes it can be extremely divisive, and it can oftentimes bring out a lot of negativity in conversations. But that's not to say that I don't use it. I would say that when I do post on social media, it's less to uplift my own personal page rather than, or what I would rather do, what I most often rather do is uplift the organizations that I'm surrounded by. Again, whether that's the two ones that I work for, or in addition, there's lots of other incredible organizations like Capital BOP and like WPFW, just listing ones that are local to our area that I often I often disseminate their events and everything they're doing because they are also uplifting the voices of people in need. So that's what I find it to be really useful for. And I generally just tread with caution though, because if you spend too much time on it, then yeah, it can lead you, sometimes it can leave you worse off because it can make you disillusioned a little bit by all the negativity. But it can be powerful. It's very powerful regardless.
Yeah. I really appreciate your response. I couldn't agree more. Like you said, social media has a way of kind of being a place where things can be an illusion for people, where reality is not really what it seems. It's the content that's being posted. And I think, like both Joshuas have said, it's important to be able to disconnect and then also realize how you are going to intentionally use your platform and how much you're going to allow yourself to consume by what's being posted by others. So thank you all for sharing your responses. And so my next question is, how have you been able to perform and or collaborate with other emerging artists during this time of uncertainty? Jacqueline, would you like to share first?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been very blessed to have the technology to allow me to connect with other artists. So I'm a pianist and a violist, so I was able to play both of those instruments for some music videos with my friends online. I went to a socially distanced recording session at a music conservatory to help my friend film this video. We got to play some Vivaldi, very nice. And also, I was able to attend an arts institute called the Oklahoma Summer Arts Institute, and that was held online. And it's usually held at this beautiful mountain campground for 2 weeks, but with COVID-19, it was impossible to have that many people together at once. So I was able to rehearse musicianship and technique and play with some other classical musicians online, and I got to take some lessons with some amazing faculty, and it was a really good reminder of why I love music so much, because it really can be created from anywhere, and it's possible to adapt to the changing situations today.
Thank you so much for sharing, Jacqueline. I think that it's amazing that you have found creative ways to still collaborate and work with other artists during the midst of a pandemic and everything is shut down and things are just so different. So I really love that. Again, you've been able to kind of push through all of those different factors. So thank you for sharing. And how about you, Joshua Jenkins? Would you like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm definitely still getting used to this reality of how we have to perform and the limitations that we're under. But with that said, I've also been doing things like performing or doing recording sessions with people in a socially distanced way, and doing lots of different live streamed events. So like, I perform a lot with a trio who I work with CAAPA and with other organizations. And we'll do events where we often will record, hour-long sets. Most of the time it'll be jazz, and they will be performed at a later date. So in addition to that, or they'll be aired at a later date rather. But in addition to that, I think that I've been able to collaborate with other emerging artists especially through Washington Jazz Arts Institute, because there was a program we did last month, which is our annual summer program. This month it was all online, which was extremely challenging, extreme. I cannot begin to tell you how challenging it was, but I think it was amazing because we got to get in contact with so many young people, and it was really inspiring to work with them and to see how they're coping as well and how they're continuing to create, continuing to strive to do their best. So that's been the most powerful, I think, collaborative experience that I've had recently.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I will say, me personally, I have had the opportunity to facilitate a virtual summer camp for elementary youth in the DC area who are experiencing homelessness and other traumatic events in their lives. And as you said, facilitating larger scale virtual events and things that are continuous is very difficult, but the work is so necessary. You have the opportunity to touch another young person's lives and just give them a smile in the midst of all of the things that just seem so down right now. So I really appreciate you sharing that, Joshua. Thank you. And how about you, Joshua Banbury?
Sorry, I had my answer and I forgot. Can you ask, what was the question one more time?
Oh yeah, no worries. It says, have you been able to perform and or collaborate with other emerging artists during this time of uncertainty?
Yeah, I've definitely been trying to think about my art more as performance art lately, and less as just a vocalist with a trio. So I've been trying to collaborate with more visual artists and dancers in the hopes of getting my work into museums and thinking about it as like a performance art piece. Um, Also because it seems to make more money as well. People in visual art have a different way of putting a currency on their art, I think. So I've been experimenting with that, working with a dancer from Juilliard, Raymond Pinto, and then a dancer from the new school where I graduated. Her name is Song, and she's from Thailand, and we're creating different short plays and involving folk songs and jazz and traditional Thai dancing and whatnot. So it's actually been really great because I'm able to collaborate with people for, you know, without a budget, because typically I would have to fly and go see them and find a place to stay, but now it's the norm to just put together a piece of art online for free. So it's really been great, actually.
Wow, well, that is exciting to hear. I hope that you keep me tuned with the works that you are going to be putting out. That sounds really exciting. I love that you said that you are also collaborating with different genres such as dance and other things and the Thai. I believe you said it was a Thai musician. I believe maybe it was, but I think that
She's a
that's just
dancer.
so. Say that again. I'm
She's a
sorry.
dancer. She does like the
Oh,
traditional.
dancer. Yes, I'm sorry, traditional Thai dance. That is amazing. And I just love to see the collaboration happen. And like you said, it is a lot more accessible and easy in this virtual space. So thank you. And finally, Project MC, can you share your experiences of being able to collaborate with other artists or being able to perform in such a time of uncertainty?
So pretty much that question, that's all I've been doing this past summer. I recently participated with a wonderful group of poets and coaches as well for Brave New Voices. For those who may not know what Brave New Voices is, it is pretty much one of the biggest, if not the biggest, international poetry festival conferences kind of thing. And we were competing as a team. So all summer we spent time just making different poems, whether it be individual poems or group pieces as well. And then, of course, what you know me from Dialect Prince George's County, which is what I was the poet laureate for. We recently had a show with Creative Sulan, who allowed us to just pretty much come in and just spit whatever pieces was on our heart at the time. So a lot of us were, together trying to refine pieces, trying to touch up with certain lines, do that. And they give us a whole hour. And for that whole hour, we were just performing. It was live streamed through their page on Instagram and Facebook. And it was just a great environment to allow us to be ourselves, to allow us to speak our thoughts on anything, whether it be related to the movement, whether it be just about us eating waffles the other day, like just whatever it was. They gave us the space to just be who we wanted to be in that time and just allow us to openly express ourselves.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, this is just so fulfilling for me to be able to hear the work that everyone has been able to continue to pursue during this time. So, thank you all for sharing. It sounds like you all have some wonderful opportunities that have been afforded to you. So, again, just thank you. And so, my last question within this section is when things reopen and become somewhat normal again, how will you use this experience and apply it to your future endeavors? Does anyone want to share first about this?
I can go. For me,
Okay, please share.
I would say one of the biggest things I'm taking away from this experience, in quarantine, is to really, 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 really appreciate every moment that you have with your loved ones, but appreciate every opportunity that comes your way if you're able to take it. Because just like we've seen, how everything just changed was just at a snap. Everything just changed. Now you can't be around people without a mask, without sanitizing, which people should have been doing anyways. But it really just goes to show that life is very precious and that there's been a lot of death that has occurred. So really, when going back outside, hopefully, which will be soon when things are back to normal, just appreciate every opportunity and just stop to really bask in every moment that you can. And I'm just going to apply that from here on out.
Yeah, I think that is definitely so important. We have to live in the moment more and just really hold on to the ones that we love very tight and nearly. Life is so short, and like you said, you just never know. So thank you for that. Anyone else want to volunteer to go next?
Yeah, I can. I completely agree with everything Project MC said. You know, as a result of the experience during this pandemic, I really am going to appreciate every moment I have in person with musicians because, you know, that's something that we do take for granted. And now that we haven't been able to have that opportunity for a while, it really just shows how we need to appreciate those times. And I have a better understanding of the difference between making connections with people in person versus online. There are two very different methods and they can produce very different results. But it's given me the chance to work on being more creative, adapting to new situations, and you know, communicating and connecting with others through online forms. So I think it's really going to give me the skills and the chance to grow as an artist. And I can definitely apply this new sort of creativity to just every area of life.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Jacqueline. Um, Joshua Jenkins, go for it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, seconding what people are saying about um, needing to value being together and being with other people. I think that extends to community organizations and to institutions like the ones that, you know, it's showing me that we already didn't support, like, I think of performing venues and I think of the ones that are going out of business right now, specifically all the jazz venues in DC, with Twins Jazz just having closed last week, um, as far as I know, permanently. And I'm just like, that shows where we needed to have been supporting before, because those places were not resilient enough to be able to survive something like this. And so in my future endeavors, I'm going to be trying to hold on to whatever organizations, like not organizations, but venues specifically, that we have, you know, specifically Black-owned venues or venues that promote, you know, Black arts, because those places were not, like I said, resilient enough to survive this. And if this is going to be, you know, what our future looks like, then we need to reallocate our resources so that they're stronger. Those areas of Black performance venues are much stronger.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think that that is truly important that for our Black-owned businesses and things like that, that really support the art forms and really give us opportunities to perform and share, that we have to continue to support them for sustainability purposes. So thank you so much for sharing that. And finally, Joshua Branbury, do you have anything you want to add to this question?
Yeah, not much. These are all really great responses, and I pretty much agree with everything. Um, for me specifically, I have definitely, it was a challenge at first for the first 2 or 3 months to have the inspiration to sing. And I really still don't sing consistently anymore because I'm very used to singing with a pianist or a trio or whatever. And it's made me realize that maybe singing is not, I still haven't answered the question, but I've been trying to wonder, am I not singing every day because I'm not meant to be a singer? Do I not have what it takes because I don't have the passion to sing every day or perform every week? It's still a question I'm trying to figure out, but I would have never thought to ask a question like that if COVID hadn't happened. And because of that, because I haven't been singing as much, I've been writing more, and really trying to figure out why I have that gift and trying to better it and seeing what becomes of that as well. So I'm very grateful because it's just giving me an opportunity to really stop after graduating school and just really reassessing what feels natural to do.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate you all's responses. And this next section is going to be a little bit more focused on social justice. And the first question is, currently there are so many different shifts happening around us, some of which are major, including the stance against police brutality, the elections, and even the census. How have you lent your artistic voice during this time? Does anyone want to share first?
I'll go.
Thank-
Um, I mentioned earlier with the voting piece that I had on that. I had a couple different pieces focused on police brutality. Some of the things that my team covered at BNV were focused on topics like these, such as the oppression of Black women, the oppression due to police brutality. So really just using any platform that I get, whether it be something given to me or like my own show, my Mike Check TV show on IG Live. Any platform I have where I can take the opportunity to speak on something that's bigger than myself. I always take it because that's, as an artist, I feel like personally I have a responsibility to do that. Though it's not something that was asked, because of the times that we're in, I just take it upon myself to feel like I have to report on these things and to shed light on it because it's around us. It's the world that we sadly live in. So definitely just taking every opportunity I can, whether in person, whether virtual, social media, to just shine light on different things.
Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate your response. And how about you, Jacqueline?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my artistic voice right now is really just coming from the platform that I have with my a nonprofit Live Life Music, and with the help of my fellow board members. Right now, we are sort of focusing on uplifting underrepresented artists, specifically minorities. We like to do a Minority Artist Monday where we introduced our followers to minority artists who are not mainstream or very popular right now. And we also compile resources about social issues such as the lack of representation in certain genres. We just did a resource about Black exclusion in indie and alternative music. And we also try to do more research and bring light to issues such as the extreme cost of classical music that makes it sort of exclusionary to certain communities. And we're just really trying to find as many ways as possible to tackle these social issues, not to avoid them, but to really just dive into them and make sure everyone is aware of what's going on so we can find a solution.
Wow, thank you so much for that, Jacqueline. I really love to hear that you have the Minority Mondays. I think that is so neat that you really afford, again, like you said, artists who are emerging and who haven't really quite hit the mainstream point yet, opportunities to perform and to share their talents and their gifts. So I think that's excellent. Thank you for that. And how about you, Joshua Jenkins?
When I think about the repertoire that I've been performing in these live stream performances or in the educational workshops and the summer camp that I was doing this past summer, the program, it was driven by a desire, I think, to reconnect with the movement of the 1960s and that cultural time, because the spirit of resistance and of the breaking of traditions, things that were normally held to just be as things that were held to be as okay, and the breaking of I guess normal stances towards Black people. what is, I guess, redefining what was deemed okay in society. I think about the songs that we're trying to teach to these young people, like "I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free" by Billy Taylor, and songs like, I don't know, songs by Freddie Hubbard. I mean, they all came out of that same cultural space, and I think that it's important. What I'm trying to do is to not only uplift our current generation, but also the future generation, to get in touch with the historical roots of the Black struggle in the music that we have constantly been playing and constantly been performing for decades, to show how they can apply that past experience to the current moment, whether that's the Black Lives Matter movement or anything.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your response. And finally, how about you, Joshua Banbury?
Yeah, I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but I can definitely expand. I have just been working to create narratives that are, like I said, not about Black struggle. So CAAPA actually helped me 2 years ago do a workshop of an opera that I wrote with my friend Jasmine Barnes, who's a composer, called The Illustrator. And we wrote that after attending a summer opera program that really made us feel inadequate. It made us feel like minstrels. We just had a really negative experience, and it kind of woke us up to the inequity in opera and the way that it's cast. And, you know, so we really took it upon ourselves to try to start making operas and plays or whatever, anything that's theatrical that showcases Black people in a positive, prosperous light, and gives Black people opportunities to play roles that extend beyond stereotypes or minstrelsy. So our opera takes place in ancient Africa. It's a prosperous kingdom. Um, you know, it's about three princes in the desert, and we're calling it an original African fairy tale. And so we're expanding upon ideas like that, and just um, that's been my main focus. And then I'm also working with other artists, and um, I don't, I think kind of my entire mission is just making space for Black people that come behind me. So, yeah.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing a little bit more about the projects that you're working on. I love that you said that your project is like an African fairy tale. I would just love to be able to see that. Sounds very interesting. And so not everyone has to answer. I know some of you have answered this question, but if you feel the need to respond, please be open to share. The next question is, how have you connected with other artistic disciplines to leverage your artistic voice? And again, if you have already touched on this, you don't have to answer this question if you don't feel the need. But would anyone like to share? Joshua, Banbury?
I can just be really brief, but I have started taking Indian classical Carnatic lessons, and it's really informed my ear. It's really informed the way that I write music. The opera has a lot of Carnatic singing in it, and a drone, and all the different ragas. So I've just had more time to focus on singing in a different way that's classical, but that's not from a European perspective. So I've been collaborating with Carnatic singers and Indian classical musicians, because really in reality, Indian classical music is closer to what ancient African music would have been like. And just learning more about that connection between the two continents and seeing how we are closer than we thought. And it's just been really quite exciting for me.
Wow, sounds really exciting. Thank you so much for sharing. Would anyone else like to share anything or add to this question? If not, I will move right along to the next one, which is, how are you using your art form to ground yourself during this difficult time? Would anyone like to share?
Yeah, I can go first. So, with things that are so rapidly changing right now, it's really hard to kind of ground yourself, as you said. And music is a really important coping mechanism for so many people. And not only music, but other forms of art as well. And, for me, I've always found solace in music and arts. I've been a pianist since I was 5 and a violist since the 6th grade. And I've always counted on music because it's a reminder that in our ever-changing world, there are some things that don't change, and there are some things that I can count on no matter what. And maybe over time, my interpretation of music can change, but the music itself is something that I can always count on to kind of stay as a constant in, the rapidly changing things of today. And yeah, it's a really great thing for me to just kind of lean on when I feel overwhelmed with everything that's going on in today's world.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that, Jacqueline. Would anyone else like to share or answer this question? Joshua Jenkins?
Um, I think this is definitely something that is a reiteration, because we touched on this a lot at the last panel, I think I've used this as a great time to focus on a lot of the projects that I've done for the past several years have almost all been collaborative. And I think that this time can be seen by a lot of artists, you know, as many negative effects and negative consequences there have been. I think it's been in some ways a blessing in disguise because we're able to, in my personal case, I'm able to focus more on my solo artistry and my own ability to play as a solo pianist and as an artist by myself, so that the next time that I do go back and work with other people on a really consistent basis, I'm able to come back that much stronger of an individual with the knowledge of my own artistry and abilities.
Thank you so much for sharing, you all. I really appreciate everyone's responses. I think that during this time, really leaning in on your artistic ability and your artistic gifts is so necessary. There's so many things that you can get caught up into doing, which are not necessarily healthy for a person to engage in. So really just leaning into just creatively express yourself and also inspire others, because you have to realize too that not everyone is a creative in that way. And so you using your voice is inspiring someone else to continue the work that they're doing or to make that positive change that they need to do within their own community. So thank you all so much for sharing your responses to that. And so my next questions are really about seasoned professionals and how they can really help emerging artists kind of develop more into their craft. I will say that when Miss Terry and I really came to the table with this idea of having this Young Voices virtual panel, we really did this with the intention of also having a space where young artists can also share how seasoned professionals can really help bridge the gap and really help things just kind of continue to push forward into the field of the arts. So that's what these next questions are going to be about. That being said, the first question is, how can seasoned artists best collaborate with emerging artists to raise awareness concerning social issues to affect positive change? And I'll read that just one more time. I know that was kind of long. How can seasoned artists best collaborate with emerging artists to raise awareness concerning social issues to affect positive change? Joshua Jenkins, do you have anything that you would like to share to this question?
It's a difficult question. I mean, there's not one easy response to it. I would say that I'm reminded of, I think the best thing that I can think of is currently with the Washington Jazz Arts Institute, the director has started this initiative to do a research project where he wants to help document a lot of the history of 5 DC venues, historic jazz venues, and it's going to be getting myself and the other members of the Institute and a lot of the youth in touch with a lot of the older generation in our research. And so I think that one way that this is a little bit off topic from the question because it's not specifically what more seasoned professionals can do to help younger artists, but I think younger artists, it speaks to what younger artists can do to take the initiative to learn from the seasoned artists themselves. Like in terms of research, like they can research the history, they can research what other artists have done in other time periods, and they can research the richness of the artistic tradition in their area, whatever area that is. So I'm excited to see what comes out of that project, and it's going to be something that speaks to bridging that gap, because bridging that gap cannot be done without history. It can't be done without learning from history.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your response. As you said, I think researching and looking into what history has already shown us, what works in a way, is very important. So thank you so much for sharing that. And how about you, Project MC? Do you have anything that you would like to answer to this question?
Definitely. I would say that when it comes to seasoned artists and emerging artists, seasoned artists more times than often have the bigger platform, whatever that case may be. And so to bring said emerging artists to that platform would be a really big deal, especially for that emerging artist, because it's something that they haven't been exposed to. Say you have this amount of following on Instagram and you have this amount of following, bringing them to that platform now you have more exposure, and whatever it is that you're talking about is bringing light to a very important topic. That's something that I definitely like to do with Mic Check, is bring people on who may not get the light that they deserve and bring them there to then talk about the things that need to be talked about. I always ask, whatever it is that topic you want to cover on the show, let me know, because it's important. The reach one, teach one mentality is very, very big with me. And just, if I'm going up, I want to bring you along with me. And so I just think that more mentorship from seasoned artists, because sometimes an emerging artist might be scared to reach out. So just to know that there is someone who is on a different level than you and is willing to reach back to pull people with them, I think that's really important for more seasoned artists to just sometimes just reach out to someone that you see who's doing something similar to you, bring them up with you. Hey, do you need any help? Do you need something to assist? And vice versa, like Joshua Jenkins said, emerging artists should take that leap of faith to reach out. First thing they can say is no. If that's the case, just move on to the next one. There's going to be someone out there who's willing to lend a helping hand. I just think that's what's most important, lending a helping hand.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. I truly believe in paying it forward. When you think about artists who are more seasoned, at some point in time, someone who was seasoned prior to them had to afford them the opportunity to be seen, and allow them the platform to be heard. So I think that it is so important, especially within our artistic community, is just to really create that space for emerging artists. So thank you so much for sharing that. And how about you, Jacqueline? Do you have anything you would like to add?
Yeah, what the panelists have said so far is so true, and I could not agree more. I really think social media is going to continue to be a great way for those seasoned artists and the emerging artists to collaborate. There are so many opportunities that people can take advantage of with the internet that might not be possible in person. So that's kind of a blessing in disguise. But there are so many resources out there. It's just about making them accessible and making them well known so that people can really take advantage of them. And as the digital world continues to progress, there's going to be more ways for people to connect. And if seasoned professionals can take the time and initiative to really reach out to smaller artists, and in the same way smaller artists can have that bravery and reach out to those professionals, then I think great collaboration can happen. And it's all about just working together and finding the space to do that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that emerging artists too have to be a little bit more confident in the sense of reaching out to the more seasoned professionals. And as Project MC said, you don't know until you try. So you have to just take that first step to kind of get it going. So I really appreciate your response, Jacqueline. And how about you, Joshua Banbury?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think mentorship is a really great way to get artists who are like more interested than most in making whatever they do a career. I have a friend who's a visual artist, African American, and he is creating sort of I don't know what it's called, but it's a program for people who have just graduated from art school. And, there's usually like a year or two where you're trying to figure out what it is you're doing. And he allows them to stay at a residency and sort of work on their art and kind of be incubated and learn about the industry and whatnot. I think more things like that, more programs that help people who have just graduated from school and feel lost and don't have a professor to tell them what to do every day anymore. But yeah, I think that would be the way to do it. But I definitely think, like Joshua was saying, it should be equally the student's responsibility to seek out the people that came before them and know who they are. And hopefully they're alive. And if they are, then you should definitely go to their shows, email them, things like that.
I really agree with your response. Thank you so much for sharing that, Joshua.
Well,
Thank you all for answering that question.
Sorry, I actually have one more thought too.
Okay.
I mean, today, thinking about today where we are with like technology, a lot of these singers or any artist that you admire is usually on social media and they have an Instagram account. And a lot of times the artist is behind the account. Same thing for Twitter or Facebook. A lot of these artists can just be reached directly if you friend them or whatever. So I've I've met a lot of artists that I respect that way. So I would take advantage of that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you that social media is now, since everyone, like we said, is using it a lot more during this time, is a great way to make those connections. A lot of people are spending a lot more time on it. So it's like you said, it's just like, why not go ahead and follow them and send them a direct message and just see what happens from there, or maybe shoot them an email to really just start that first point of connection. So I really appreciate your response. Thank you all for that. My next question is, who are some of the social justice artists that have inspired you and why? How about you, Jacqueline? Would you like to share?
Yeah, I think that there have been so many inspiring social justice artists lately. You know, almost too many to name, but I can find so many artists in so many different genres, like music, film, design, visual arts, just really every part of the arts community. And I think it's so amazing that people are taking the time to educate themselves to really understand what's going on in the world right now, because you really do need to advocate for underprivileged people when you have the platform to do so. And I think everyone who is taking that time to educate themselves is deserving of praise. And you know, that kind of raises the issue of performative activism, which is sort of a problem because people like to speak out just for their own benefit. But I think if we can recognize that issue and address it, and you know, performative activism is not the best solution, but at least it's a first step in being aware of the issue. So if they can continue to be educated about those problems, then they can have a better understanding. They can continue to use their platform to speak out, and they can really affect change within their audience and the community around them.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Jacqueline. I completely agree with you that there are a lot of people that try to do social justice art with the intentions that are just not pure, that are just really about self gain. So I think that it is important to also keep that in mind as we are taking things in from other artists and watching things, and it's just so imperative to keep that in mind. So thank you for that reminder. How about you, Joshua Jenkins? Do you have anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, when I think about the artists that I'm most inspired by, I mean, that changes constantly. At this current moment, I'm really inspired by a lot of local artists who are, if you look at the current lineup of artists on, and I'm bringing this organization up again, Capital Bop, which is a really, really awesome local organization which promotes jazz in the area. Um, they've been doing this series of live stream concerts, and my trio was the one that performed and kicked off that series, but I've been keeping up with it, and people like Jenna Camille, who have been speaking out a lot against like sexual abuse against women. I think about Aaron Myers, who's been speaking out a lot against police brutality and they use their platform, they use their sets to not only speak through their, like, they speak through their music, but they also speak just through just powerful words in between these songs. They're really talking about a lot of the issues very directly and just using their platform to speak straight into the mic directly about what is going on. And I really admire their bravery, their directness. They really don't hold back. I'm also really inspired by my own brother. My older brother wrote a song called "Don't Say Anything," which critiqued the culture of people staying silent about issues that matter to them, which again ties back to what I opened this up with about Black voices being silenced. So I'm really inspired by a lot of people who are really close to me and are local in this area. I think we have a lot of a lot of talent in this area.
Thank you for sharing, Joshua. I really appreciate you also saying that you have a deep interest and passion for local artists. I think that that's also important too. Most times, a lot of people just always want to keep up and follow with more mainstream artists, but your local artists also need love too. They need the support in order to really begin to flourish in their work. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Wait, sorry, I forgot. I mentioned the two names of the artists who are in the Capital Bop series, but I didn't mention my own brother's name. His name is Joey Jenkins. He's also an incredible artist. So go follow him. I'm going to shout him out. That's it.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And how about you, Joshua Banbury?
Yeah, mine will be very brief because my response is really Joshua's response. I have deep fascination and appreciation for the artists who have found the strength and the strength to talk about what's going on and really have decided to make that their fight. Because some artists have to do it. So I really respect like the artists when I was living in New York in the summer with the protests. There were jazz artists that were like at the front of the protests and playing music and entertaining people and keeping the spirits up. That's really inspiring to me. And I guess I've really been looking deeper into history and trying to learn more about Black artists that never got recognition, Black artists that did things that Black people, people today don't usually associate Black people with doing, like folk singing and things like that. So those people have been inspirational to me. I think just looking back at history and then the people that are really close to where I come from and that are doing local work. Local.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And finally, how about you, Project MC?
For me, really just my peers, to see that I have peers surrounded by me, and I'm coming from a generation who are very outspoken and very intentional with speaking up on things through their art or just any other medium they can. Two people that come to mind directly is Lyrical Faith. She was at the Brave New Voices conference and she hosted a workshop on combining art with social justice activism. And that was really great. She's a poet and just a really great writer. And then another friend of mine, Jazz Simone, she is from Des Moines, Iowa, I want to say. She's a poet as well and has been doing a really great job of organizing a lot of community events, protests, things to give it back to the people, whether it be food, clothing, things like that. So just knowing that there are artists out there who not only talk the talk, but then go out in the streets and walk the walk, that's really great to know that I'm in connections with people like that.
Yeah, I'm sure that is definitely a comforting feeling, and it's amazing that you have people in your network that, again, are producing such great work. So thank you all for sharing that. Within this section, I do have one last question, which reads, what resources can seasoned artists develop to support emerging creatives? And as you feel the need, just go ahead and begin to answer as you wish.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think about the same resources that we're building at the Washington Jazz Arts Institute in terms of the end result of this project is going to be having a film, a documentary film and a series of interviews that younger artists can rely on and use as inspiration for how jazz has functioned in this city historically. So I think I'm just going to repeat what I said for the other question about connecting more seasoned artists with emerging creatives, which is that those kind of resources, those kind of historical resources are very vital.
Thank you for sharing. Does anyone else have anything they would like to add to this question?
Yeah, I would just say, again, online resources are so important right now. And there's a variety of those that could be made accessible, YouTube videos, website developments, books, pamphlets, anything that people can really look at and learn from. And again, the importance of making those things accessible, ensuring that everyone has access. So, that might look like additional funding for arts organizations like CAAPA, like other groups that are advocating for people who don't have those resources, and just compiling those resources for everyone to be distributed to smaller artists, emerging artists, anyone that's looking to kind of get in the industry, in the field, whatever would have the farthest reach. So if, what that looks like for everyone, just working together to really provide those opportunities for everyone.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Jacqueline. I think that it is very important that funders of nonprofit organizations and other entities really focus on those smaller nonprofits that have smaller capacity, but really have the ability to reach a lot of people through their amazing work. It is definitely important to really, again, just spread those resources evenly, taking that into consideration. So thank you again for sharing that. And my next question is more focused on next steps. And so my question is, what advice would you give a young artist who is interested in using their artistic skills and talents to raise awareness about social issues? And I read that again. What advice would you give a young artist who is interested in using their artistic skills and talents to raise awareness about social issues? Project MC, do you have anything you want to share?
For me, I'd say some of the biggest advice, the best advice that I can give is to be true and authentic in everything that you do. We touched on performative activism just a little bit earlier. Don't do anything just for a look. Don't do anything just because it might seem cool and trendy on social media, because people's lives are at stake and depend on the awareness that we bring, depend on the actual work being put in once awareness has already been brought to the table. So I say just in all of your art, just be true and authentic in who you are, and just don't be afraid to go with that gut instinct. Don't be afraid to trust that feeling that you have about wanting to do something and you believe it's the right thing. There will be many people who would try to deter them from following their true heart, from following their true intentions. And just sometimes you just got to walk on faith and just trust yourself, trust the process. And it doesn't always look like land of milk and honey while you're in the process, but it's just knowing that, have that faith that on the other side, there is milk and honey there. Just having that faith and being authentic is what I would say.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think being authentic in your art is very important. So thank you again for sharing that. Joshua Jenkins.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with everything Project MC said, and I think there's two sides to it, and one of them, two sides to what I would recommend to young artists, what they do. One of them is that they should speak to where they can speak to their daily reality, because like I was saying at the beginning, the voices that need to be heard are the voices that speak to the problems that need to be solved in today's country. And so if people are not speaking to what they are experiencing, I think that their voices get so drowned out in the media and in all other fields that we need as many people as we can speaking to the issues that Black people are facing. And any voice counts towards that strength, of getting that voice out. But at the same time, this ties back into what Joshua Banbury was saying at the beginning, which was that young artists should not feel pressured. They should feel free to express whatever it is that, that they want to express. It does not necessarily have to be in response to the movement. There's all of our energy is being devoted to this, and it leaves nothing left over for anything else that people might be feeling, so that's what I mean when I say there's two sides to it. One is that I feel like there's a need, and it's kind of a paradox, because there is this gigantic need to speak to our daily problems and our daily realities, but at the same time, you can't let everything else die. Everything else needs to be spoken to as well. So I would say to young artists that they have a gigantic task in front of them to balance those two sides of expression. But I believe in this generation and in the future generations. So that's what I would say to them.
Thank you so much for your response, Joshua. I really, really appreciate that. And how about you, Joshua Banbury? Do you have anything you would like to add?
Yes, I really love what Joshua said at the very end. This generation and the future generation. It's my advice for any Black artist that's just looking to create art in general. Inspiration can always be found by looking at history, looking at those who came before you, and figuring out how they solved many of the same problems we're dealing with today, or how they didn't solve them, and thinking about as an artist creating space. So sorry, two things: honoring, respecting and educating yourself on those that came before you, and also moving forward, creating space for Black artists that will come after you. That's where most of my inspiration lies. That's why I am inspired to do social justice work. I do every now and then. And if I do, I think about it as me trying to just, like I said, make space for other Black artists that may come behind me. So that's what I would do.
Thank you so much, Joshua, for that. As I said, I think that it is so important to make space for other artists that are going to come behind us so that we can continue to pave the way and work together. And finally, Jacqueline, do you have anything that you would like to add?
Absolutely. Um, and, you know, I am still very young. I have a lot to learn. I'm still developing experience right now. But what I've learned so far is just really, it's really important to have a good network of people around you, people who can inspire you, uplift you, give you support in your times of need. It's really hard to do anything by yourself. And you really need to count on the support of others just really at all times. And you know, I have an amazing board of directors to work with, a volunteer team, and we kind of bounce ideas off of each other. And this really provides for fostering growth and, you know, developments within this organization. And I think that's important for any any young creative who might be like me, starting something that they don't have much experience with, but they're trying their best to learn as much as they can. And you know, today it's really important to just stop and listen and collaborate with the people who are around you. And that really is one of the best resources that I think we have today. And if you use that to your advantage, I think it can really help you to be successful in advocating for social issues within arts.
Thank you so much for your response, Jacqueline. I think, as you said, having a strong network around you that really support you genuinely is definitely a must, especially in this field. It's important to have people that will just give it to you straight and tell you the truth of how they see things, especially when they have your best interest at heart. So I really do appreciate your response. And that being said, I will say that those are all of our questions for tonight's panel. I really just want to thank all of our panelists again for just taking the time out to just share and have an open and transparent conversation about some of the current issues that are happening among us and how you all have really been overcoming such a difficult time. And that being said, I just want to do one final call of everyone's name. And as I say your name, please just share where you are from, and then also any final remarks or words that you would like to leave with. That being said, I would like to start with Joshua Banbury.
Hi, yeah, my name is Joshua Banbury. I'm originally from Austin, Texas, and now I'm back here in Austin. And I would like to thank CAAPA for doing the work that really no one else is doing. There aren't many organizations that exist like this in the country, and I'm very grateful to them for creating opportunities for artists like me to feel heard and have opportunities to, because you can create art, but if you don't have like a reason to create it, or like a deadline or a competition or like a grant, you know, a lot of things don't get done, but they make opportunities for Black artists to create things and motivate us. So I'd just like to say thank you.
Thank you, Joshua. And how about Jacqueline Fan?
I'm Jacqueline. I am from Oklahoma, and I just want to say thank you so much to CAAPA for giving me this opportunity. It's been so great to talk with everyone today, to really understand from the Black community's point of view everything that's going on right now. I love this opportunity that I have to speak with you all and to gain a better understanding. And yeah, I can't wait to see what CAAPA does in the future. And thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. How about Joshua Jenkins?
Again, my name is Joshua Jenkins, and it has been my genuine pleasure to be here tonight and to just be a part of, again, this incredible work this organization is doing, continuing my work with CAAPA, and continuing to bring our community together with these kinds of conversations. And I want to leave by saying that although it's really easy to become, I don't want to say cynical, but I'm going to say maybe a little disillusioned by everything that's going on right now and the future of our community and our country, I just want to, you know, speak into existence that I think that this pressure that we are experiencing as a community is going to make us stronger ultimately. I think that it's through times like these that we really realize what's important, realize what our true priorities are, and all of our organizations, our institutions, our communities will be stronger because of this. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Joshua Jenkins.
Again, I go by the name.
And finally, Project MC.
Again, I go by the name Project MC, and I don't really have anything to say because all of my great fellow panelists have taken it. I'm a big advocate on just peace, power, and prosperity, so I just definitely encourage everyone to always promote those three things. And follow me on social media at I am Project MC. Peace, power, prosperity. Love you guys.
Thank you all so much for sharing that with us. I really appreciate you all again taking the time out to join us for this wonderful conversation. I feel really full from all of the things that we talked about and hearing the amazing work that you all are doing the last few months. Again, to all of the viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Christina Lyles, and before we go, I just want to share our next round of panels that will be coming up. Our next panel is Tuesday, December 1st, 2020. Again, it will be happening at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. We will then have one March 2nd on a Tuesday, 2021. Again, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern. And then finally, we will have our last panel of this series on Tuesday, June 1st, 2021, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern. Thank you again so much for tuning in, and we hope to see you. Thank you.
I would like to say thank you to our moderator, the panelist, executive director, and chairperson for providing such a rich and open dialogue. The panelists have truly provoked great thought and hopefully further conversation. I'd like to also offer a special thanks to all of our viewers for sharing in this moment. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening.